What's up, everyone? Welcome. We are live right now on CannaBuzz, and if you're joining us on YouTube or Spotify or out there in the podcast universe, thank you so much for joining us. We have a great episode for you today. We're going to be talking all about Brad from Raw Genetics. It's been 10 years of Raw Genetics, so we're going to be catching up with Brad. What's up with him lately? We're going to be kind of reminiscing a little bit, hearing some stories about the last several years, and then we're going to be talking about what's going forward and all sorts of things. So before we get too far into it, we do need to make some shout outs. Shout outs to everyone in the CannaBuzz community. As you can see down there on the screen, there we go, over there somewhere on the bottom of the screen, you can use that code GROWERSLOVE for 50% off, or you can use the code BUZZ, I believe it is, for your first month free over in the CannaBuzz app. So search CannaBuzz on the App Store, download the app, join the community. We'd love to see you over there, and your support helps us go to events like the Emerald Cup, the Dude Grows Cup, things like that. It's really appreciated. We really appreciate your support. Also, shout outs to our friends over at Lost Coast Plant Therapy. If you need an IPM spray that's organic and can help you out in your grow, we highly suggest Lost Coast Plant Therapy. And also, if you're new to using it, check out our episodes with Dirk, the founder. Just search Lost Coast Plant Therapy and CannaBuzz, and I'm sure you'll find our episodes. They're super informative and super helpful. Also, thanks to Dirk for his support. And then last shout out for me goes out to our friend Tanazi at sacred3mushrooms.com. Thank you, Tanazi, for your support. If you want to grow your own mushrooms at home, you can grab a grow kit over at sacred3mushrooms.com. It's like a plastic container that's got everything you need in it. He's got videos, instructional videos, links to other stuff on his website, everything you can need up there at sacred3mushrooms.com, and use the code CannaBuzz for a discount. And then I'm going to throw it over to JR to a couple shout outs and to kick off the episode.
Excellent. Thanks, Q. First, we'll do our Tiki announcements. He's got the Runt Spectacular that he's doing. It's a box set, 3-pack, and it's a dealer's choice. So hit up tikiseeds.com and pick up a 3-pack. And also, we're going to talk about Brad's offering this week. He's got his Tengu, which is Purple Ziggy Guy by Blue Zlushiez. And I'm running that Blue Zlushiez right now in my garden. And if you take a look at it, it's just fantastic. I'm glad he's on here because today we're going to kind of be doing some strain talk. A lot of times, we get into grow stuff and we get into other topics, but we don't really do some strain nerd stuff. So I'm excited to go through some of his catalog and some of the stuff that he's done over the years. And kind of get his opinion. So the Purple Ziggy Guy has been winning some awards already this year in the hash competitions, Brad. So can you kind of tell us about that?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on again. I feel like it's been way too long. Good to see you guys. Yeah, man. I recently got the guys who won. I can't remember what their name is. I think they submitted it by Oishi, if I'm not mistaken. But they definitely had reached out. They sent me over some samples and stuff. And yeah, they actually took first place over there. I want to say it was in New Mexico. One of my friends, Jet that I know, he had hit me up like after, and he was like, "Hey, I just realized like your strain won first place at our second event that we did, And so, yeah, it was really cool to see that the Purple Ziggy had performed well and it washed really well. And major shout out to those guys, super cool. They shot us over like their SOPs, like everything, like how they did it, their technique, and, went above and beyond really. So we got to make sure to, get some cool stuff back to them to support, hopefully them going after some more wins and stuff like that.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about the combination of the two in this Tengu. What are some of the phenos that are kind of coming out of that project?
Yeah, you're definitely seeing that Georgia blue cookie, like ramped up blue cookie profile coming out, little gelati, gassy cookie dough. And then it's blending really well with the creamy Z that comes out of that out of the purple Ziki there. Of the different Ziki phenos that we had kept, the purple was one of the ones that was not straight Z. It was definitely, a lot of Z in the mix, but it was one of the outliers that had a little bit more like cream, gas, kind of some different notes going on. And so, yeah, it was really cool to see that one had taken a win when some people were like, oh, well, it's not a Z. And I'm like, well, I didn't pick it to be Z. I knew it wasn't. But yeah, she's great, smokes amazing, great for flower, and seems to be proven multiple times over to kind of land and wash around 5%. So not bad on the return side either.
Nice, nice. And so I personally have a cut of the red Ziggy guy.
Yeah.
So what's that profile going to be kind of like? I've got that.
The
one
red
going
is the
into
one. Yeah, sorry, cut you off there. The red is definitely the one that is straight Z, right? Like I want to say there were four keepers that were found from the original hunt still standing today. With the Ziki guy being the one that we don't publicly release, and then Red Ziki being like the Z leaner that we do release, where grows vertically, doesn't bush really, and it really does well. Like it grows faster, it's hardy, it's not finicky. For me, clone's just fine. I've heard a couple other people say they had a tough time getting it cloned, so I don't know. I think that might just be luck of the draw. Right. For me, they root super easy. I mean, I just, clean them up, stab them into a cube of little Clonex and, pop your dome, wipe it down a few times. The next thing you know, about 10 days later, you got roots. So, but yeah, they work really well for me, and everybody that I've shown the red to, since it is the Z leaner, it really tends to impress people a lot. It's typically been described by people who haven't spoken to each other as bright, like a bright Z, which I thought was a really fair way of describing like the tone of the profile. Some other people have also said, oh man, really reminds me of like a red Skittle. And I'm like, oh, well, the red was kind of, I didn't name it specifically for that. Red just happens to be my favorite color. And I wanted to put something out that I thought people would really love. And so, yeah, the red Ziki seemed like a fun spin there.
Well, I'm excited. And so part of our entry, we always ask how we fell in love, but we know how you fell in love with the plant. We've been through that, but kind of catch us up on like the last, even like 3 years, like within the last 3 to 5 years, things have really been moving in a much faster pace for you in many directions. So can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like, in the very beginning of Raw, it was more of just an idea, something that was like a fun passion, but hadn't really made the full transition into consuming my day yet. And so I think somewhere around the 5-year mark is probably when things really had, progressively got more sophisticated and focused, and the drive was really starting to ramp up, and looking at it like, well, hey, I think we could really take it from a fun company that's just like a side project to like, this is what we do, And I think somewhere around that, a little bit, maybe like a little bit over 3 years ago, I feel like is when I was fortunate enough to be the first one to get Georgia Pie. And, I think that it's pretty clear most people can see, like, from the Georgia Pie going on, it just kind of, I think it's a combination of things, right? Georgia was really great. We were first on that hype right there, which mattered a lot more back then at that time. And then we also came into COVID and all of those different things, which had people inside. And so like the industry and all these things really just kind of landed together at the same time. And we were in position, fortunately. And I feel like, it's a little bit of timing and just being always working and being there for the moment to happen. But it really seemed to help us have, an upward trajectory where we really, notoriety went up. A lot more people knew our name, going out to shows, all this stuff definitely seemed to have a little bit of an explosion there. And then I think that, like all big waves, those waves kind of crest at some point. And then the goal is just to keep maintaining, keep pushing, keep, doing what you're doing, regardless of if, you have all that influx of attention might dissipate a little bit. And, it definitely does over time. But regardless, I feel like we've maintained relevancy really well, and we've continued to improve our processes and really start leaning way more into back crossing, line breeding. I've accepted the market doesn't really like traditional seeds. They don't want to buy regs too much, although we have them. My main focus is really just doing everything feminized and really just trying to do the best we can to find unique expressions that have unforgettable profiles to combine.
I just want to say though, kind of leading into things, we kind of want to do a little history walkthrough of some of your stuff that you've been working on leading up to kind of the Georgia. And one of the first projects that I ever got from you was your raw cookies, and that was a Purple City Genetics pheno of the Girl Scout cookies that you had crossed, I believe, with your French toast, right?
Actually, I think it was Thin Mint or the burner cookie cut or something. What was that? No, that had to be Forum. Forum was like the girl back then, I feel like, and we had got Forum, and I had Gorilla Glue. We had different things. I was already out in California at that point. But I do remember the first crosses we did. They were right off the seeds that I had got going out to the show. And when I first really got inspired to be like, oh, why don't we just do this? You know what I mean? And so I'd hit what I thought were, the gyms, right? They had the hype, the people were into it. And those were the first things we put out. And, honestly, the reason I called them like raw cookie and raw glue is just because I didn't know what to name them. I remember sitting there and I had the seeds, and it went from like, I just really want to make these seeds right, to where I was like, oh man, there's all these people who are just popping up, and, they're nobody like me. And they just sending seeds out to other people who are interested. They're getting testers. And I just kind of was there. I feel like at that hype, the height of Instagram's, attention.
Reachability.
And just, oh man, Instagram was a blast at that point. We were having so much fun. Nobody cared if your accounts were getting deleted. I mean, you could get deleted from 20K and be back to 10K in a couple of weeks at that point. Now you get deleted. It's tough. It takes a long time to grow the profile back. They hide you and shit like that. So, but yeah, it was, what a time, what really exciting time. And, the inspiration and the people and all the different little micro companies that were popping up, it really made you feel inspired. Like you could kind of just do anything you might think of at that point. And so I remember all the catalysts came together, and that and the era that Ross started in, where like Canorado and all these guys were like the titans, the up and coming titans at the time. What a time to be there.
Yeah, it was awesome. So the trade shows, some of the breeders that would show up and some of the stuff they would offer back in the day at the trade shows and at these events. I mean, it's like the foundational work for so much stuff that's out there right now.
Yeah, great times, man. Really, definitely feels, looking back at it, like it was a little piece of history. You got to be there participating in right on the cusp of recreational coming in and really just putting a stranglehold on innovation and competition, and really just crippling, in my opinion, what is the biggest, part of the industry out here in California.
So one of the strains that I remember popping on the radar, I think maybe they were talking about it on Dude Grow Show or something like that, was French Toast. So tell us about the French Toast.
Yeah, French Toast was from Archive, and that was the thing that we did after the pink. I remember my thoughts on the pink were, it's really cool, it's very unique and interesting, but I didn't think there was any way to like keep endlessly building on pink. It just didn't really feel like it, because the profile was so unique and powerful. Honestly, pink overpowered almost everything you crossed it with. I think it was like Black Cherry Soda Starfighter or something like that, or some variant of a hybrid, exotic built off of something like that. And man, it was very pronounced. You know what I mean? So being in California and just trying to figure out like, where do we go from here? I remember I just got a bunch of OG seeds I had like some stuff from Gauge Group, Archive. I can't remember. I ran like some stuff from like 4 or 5 different breeders. And in the end, the French Toast was the one that we thought was like the most authentically OG. And that was really what we were trying to do at that moment. You know what I mean? The idea was kind of like, hey, we're in California. We're from California. OG was like the king. It's what California's been known for decades, right? So it's like that's what we wanted to do, not really too overthinking the situation. And that's kind of what led down that path where we started doing all the French toast stuff.
It seems like there was some real bangers in that. The crystal cookies that I had, people freaked out. I mean, it was so gassy and its flavor lasted for so long that a lot of those crosses that you made in that kind of time zone kind of set you up for success leading forward. Because one of the things you did is you found this particular male that was fantastic, and then you started working the cut market, finding great things to cross. And that's kind of what I was kind of wanting you to maybe get out there to people, is that process of isolating your genetics and then making yourself known to the cut market, because the cut market a lot of times is what gives you the ability to start building a library.
Yeah, absolutely. You mean just kind of like around sourcing rare clone onlys and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Which, yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like I think most people who are, dabble in breeding in the early days, it definitely the hype of these exotic cuts that are hard to get, it's definitely very alluring, and it definitely drives traffic. It drives people's attention, right? So it's totally understandable that you'd be wanting to try to source those things. I feel like I'm fortunate that these days I don't really stress about things that are like overly popular. It's not really my main concern, but I do try to integrate stuff still because, at the end of the day, the goal is to bring stuff that people want you to make, right? So we'll blend some of the hype with some of the things that we're doing. But yeah, I remember at one point in time, it was very hard to get anything of quality, right? Like nothing would work. And then in the early days, we were pretty fortunate that like where I was a manager at, we ended up getting Sunset Sherbert, the real one. And that was in the peak of her days, you know what I mean? And so by having that, it was kind of and I've spoke about it before, it was kind of like a really funny event where it was almost like joining some kind of cool kids club unofficially. Like nobody could really, they didn't care. Nobody cared what Raw was. Nobody cared who Brad was. Like none of that was important at the time. I couldn't get stuff. You know what I mean? And then I had Sunset Sherbert. And the next thing you know, people are like, really what it was is people would do almost anything to try to be friendly with you in the hopes of you sourcing Sunset to them. You know what I mean? So it's really kind of disingenuous when you look at it, but it's okay if you accept that everybody's there for a transaction and, that's kind of the name of that event. Then everybody can try to get their transactions however they want to. And, at the end of the day, we were able to start racking up a pretty good library of verifiable genetics. I mean, I feel like over the years, I've been fortunate to have so many rare things. Like, I just really wish there was a way I could have kept everything that I had. I feel like most people in our positions would probably feel similar to that. Because I've had some real gems and some real rare stuff and things that people would be into. And, over time, it's just hard to hold on to things forever. And that was before tissue culture is what it is now. It wasn't really an available resource to be like, oh, let me pass these over to somebody and they'll hold them in culture for an extended period of time, So I feel like a lot of things were lost or just, passed on, given up on over time through that experience of just not being able to keep and continue to source,
But, all of that's locked into a lot of the breeding projects that you've done over the years. So just give the people idea of what your seed collection is like.
Man, I have a pretty good seed collection of stuff from like in the beginning when we were getting started. And I got to be honest, at this point, it's super old and probably not stored 100% correctly. So I imagine I have a ton of seeds that are just sitting here going bad. And I've looked back through the box and tried to think like, oh, there's some sick gems I'm going to pull out of here. And, it's like, I feel like we must at least be on track because the progression of Raw has me really only wanting to keep going forward and, I look back and unless we have like some sick cuts from something, I don't know. There's not really much in the box from other breeders or old stuff that we've made that I think is necessarily going to take us to the next step forward. So, I think that just really shows over the years we've honed our skills considerably from a hobbyist who really didn't know anything to, now we've been doing this for 10 years and it's quite a difference. It really is.
So, when I think of you guys, both of you guys together, obviously the Cherry Paloma comes to mind. And so give us the backstory on that and kind of the Georgia years, the Cherry Paloma. How does this all kind of work together?
Yeah, no problem. So Cherry Paloma is really become a really cool story for me to watch the evolution on. In the beginning, before I ever got Georgia, Relentless did a drop of the Trop Cherry with my boy West Coast Connoisseur. And so that's quite a ways back. And I remember it was like a collaboration release. There was a limited amount of clones. I feel like they were like a couple grand or like over 1,000 or something. I can't remember the exact price, but the point is they were pricey, right? They were expensive. My boy curated it working with Relentless, and he had released the Trop Cherry, right? And so that's how I was able to originally get Trop Cherry as, being a part of that situation. And then I got to Georgia later, and the whole time I'm thinking, man, I really like this Trop Cherry. Probably one of the best spins on Tropicana I had seen. I really enjoyed the smoke versus most like Trop or the Mountain Trop cut, So I was really excited to pair it with Georgia whenever we had got that. And I was putting the first line together. I was like, hell, this is going to crush, man. This is going to be so good. And then really hilariously, we had like every drop we were doing was selling out, blowing out, crushing, killing the game. We were just really having a great time with all the excitement around it, right? And then we put out the Cherry Paloma. I'm thinking, all right, cool. Here's another one just coming down the pipeline. It's about to kill it. And it almost fell on deaf ears. It kind of felt like, I think we did like 20% of the sales that we had anticipated versus like a sellout, which is fine. At that time, things were selling out like crazy. It's not really the standard these days. Things tend to hang out a little bit longer, but yeah, it just really was not popular, was not interesting to people for some reason. And it just kind of left me scratching my head. But that happens sometimes when you're a breeder. You're trying to pair things and you think like, oh, people are really going to be into this. And then they're not. So, it's just luck of the draw, right? But then I had sent the seeds out to JR. He was super interested. And I don't know what kind of voodoo my boy did over here, but whatever magic spell he cast on that Cherry Paloma has not stopped running yet. I mean, we look at the analytics and stuff for raw and the search traffic and what are people looking at. And nonstop running strong, Cherry Paloma is the number one thing that we are searched for some reason. I definitely would not have guessed that. I always knew it was going to be a banger, but yeah, it's just really crazy, but the proof's definitely there in the numbers. And ever since JR came out, put the pictures out, told people, hey, this is it, went and won at the Dude Gross Cup, took a win home. I mean, the momentum has just been nonstop. And then it's just, I think at this point we've probably plateaued, but it hasn't dropped off. It's still cranking consistently. Like I could look right now and Cherry Paloma will be the number one search thing still. So yeah, man, whatever JR did, he really fulfilled well beyond my dreams of what I thought Cherry Paloma could have been as far as like a hit for the community, and it's definitely been bringing people through nonstop. So, I don't think we'd have any of that notoriety, which has brought us a ton of attention. And really, it's all thanks to JR just being passionate and just crushing it in the grow room over there.
Well, brother, we've been working together for almost a decade, just me and you as friends.
Yeah.
And you always bless me. When you hand me those seeds, they're not like, hey, bro, you always gave those to me as a blessing, right? So those were always a gift to me. And then I've told people 1,000 times is you often allowed me to have something that people really desired. And at the end of the day, that fed my family. And the story of the Cherry Paloma was I had 3 fem seeds that I cracked. I killed 2 of them in the process. The only one that survived was that Paloma. And I had cracked it with a few other things that you had done. And I walked by it in veg when it was about 2.5 feet tall, and I just got a vibe from it, man. And it was kind of off to the running, and I was able to take it to do grows, and do well with it. And dude made an announcement at the cup saying, "Oh, JR's a real generous guy. If you hit him up, he'll probably give you a cut." And holy shit, by the time I got home, I had email. I mean, my shit was blown up. And so thanks to Sunny and Backtopia, I think we sent out like 150 to 180 cuts, just out of the kindness of our own doing. And that's kind of what led me into this opportunity to, to sell cuts. And so the whole thing about that Paloma, it's the thing about it is it checks boxes for just about everyone. It's like if you're a commercial grower, bam, it's going to kill it for you. If you want to wash and get a super unique flavor, it's going to do well for you. If you're in the home and you need really good medicine that's going to help kind of take the edge off of whatever it is that's bothering you, it's good medicine. And so I find, though, that I'm onto this Z Pie now. Whenever I'm cracking, like I'll get a 10-pack from you, and I guarantee you, I'll have a hard time picking just one. I've got these 2 Z pies that I've got to, I'm trying to figure out in my head. I got only so much room, and it's like one should go, but I can't. I mean, they're both amazing, and one's a little fruity, one's more dank with more flavor, but they both bring so much to the table that makes it hard. And that Georgia, a lot of the stuff. I mean, go ahead and kind of give people an idea of some of the bangers that came out of that Georgia line.
Man, Georgia has made so much amazing stuff, honestly. Shout out to Seed Junkie. He created Georgia Pie, and we definitely have him to thank for putting that thing out into the world. I feel like almost everything Georgia's done was respectable on more than one level, right? Biscotti Pies won cups for hash. Man, I'm trying to think. My brain just literally goes blank because there's so many Georgia things. It's like, which one is it? Z Pies, multiple awards, best thing smoking, first place for candy. Oh man, Peyton's Pie. Like, there's just so many. Blue Slushy. I mean, there's definitely like 20 of them. I think I made probably at least 20 different Georgia crosses over the years. Plus, we put it in other lines as well, like with the rainbow belts and different stuff like that. So. Yeah, man, Georgia's consistent. It always brings good size, beautiful flowers, and gas to the table, right? And it tends to blend well with other things. And so, yeah, we want to definitely keep trying to work the Georgia line. Like, we've got some Georgia Pie F2s. Those have been available for a little bit. And I think pretty soon I'm gonna get back around to starting to try to work more on that. And we're gonna hunt the F2s down, work on doing some F3s and probably a new Georgia line. But we still have a good amount of the original Georgia crosses, Z Pie, Blue Slushy, Peanut Butter Pie, tons of those things. But they are starting to finally run low. It didn't seem like it made any sense to bring another Georgia line in on top of a bunch of standing, already loved Georgia stuff. And so we're kind of letting those run their course. And then, I think we'll be continuing that line later down the road. But in the meantime, we've done a Z Pie line, a Blue Slushy line. We're working on a Cherry Paloma one right now. Like I said, I mean, it's literally the #1 search thing. And so it's like, I don't know, it's impossible to look at that and think, well, it's not going to go good. I think it's probably going to go just fine. But I will say, it's really interesting to see that it's the #1 search thing when we typically see orange things and most people aren't really too over the moon about it. You know what I mean? When it comes to things that are like orange crosses or whatever, but she's been standing the test of time. And yeah, I think we've got some cool stuff to pair it with. And we've still got a ton of Cherry Paloma, the F1s. And I think we'll probably make some S1s, but I don't think the S1s need to be released maybe alongside. I don't know. We'll see what's up. I mean, I guess there's no harm in it. But yeah, we'll definitely be making some S1s. I don't have all the other Cherry Palomas that I had over the years up to this point. Like, I've lost them, and I only have the one that you found. And so in this point, you know, I would be trying to make like an F2 so that we could hunt it and try to see which direction the line wants to go. But the only option
Yeah, it'd be
really is to
interesting.
make an S1. So
And
we'll
so what
definitely
are
do that.
in your mind, what are some of the things that you're kind of thinking that will click with it that you're going to throw it up against?
Well, we're definitely looking for some other kind of really proven orange that would complement it. Something citrus, probably like a lemon, you know, maybe like a gelinade in there would be really cool. And then definitely a Z, you know, either Ziki, Red Ziki, or maybe one of these Kaizens. We're running the Kaizens back right now to kind of see what we think are the best out of the group. You know, it's kind of like hunting when we originally hunted Ziki. You know, we had all these keepers, and then right now I'm already down to where I have like 4 Kaizens. You know, I had 5. I let one go totally based on the fact that it was just the slowest and shortest of the group, and the other 4 were a little more on par with each other. And so now I'm running 3 of those back, and I can see. At first, it looked like 2 of them were crushing the other one, and now the other one's fully caught up. So, you know, it's just, I don't know. It's really interesting to see how those things all play out. But yeah, we're going to definitely look for things that would complement orange really well. I don't know. That one I do find to be tough, you know, because orange can kind of be a little too domineering sometimes. And we haven't done any Paloma crosses yet. I don't know. Maybe I should reach out to who's the homie from Dude Grows that did a Cherry Paloma line. You remember? I
Oh
can't
man,
remember who it is. Was it like Soup or
Soup did his ladies' night that he took and crossed with it, and also Do You Right Genetics Noah crossed it with the Screaming Blueberry, I believe from I forget now. Anyways, yeah, so some of the guys, a lot of these guys that have been, because you're kind of open source about breeding, and you know, you don't gatekeep in that respect. And then so I always try, like Roland Fatties did a cross with Breath, with one of the Breath strains, and he's got some Paloma Breath that looks really amazing. And
Nice.
you see its dominance in a lot of the stuff that it's being crossed with. As I see other people working with it, its dominance comes through in color and in profile against a lot of the stuff that they're running it against. It's a very dominant strain. And I agree. You know, I think one of the things about Paloma that is appealing is it's not so overpowering citrus. Like I have that emergency cut from Seed Junkie, and it's just orange, cleaner, orange rind to the point that it's almost nauseating. Like after a couple hours of trimming it, you're just like, oh my God, I can't smell this anymore, you know? But I feel like Paloma is subtle enough with that gas profile that comes on with that gassy funkiness that kind of makes it you know, more palatable for people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what I already know. Like orange stuff is so domineering. Over the years, we've made a handful of, you know, orange crosses and run them, and definitely seen that it's like it doesn't matter what you pair it with. Like it just becomes like this 90% orange thing, and then the hunt is the result of you just looking for what is the least orange.
Yeah, really,
because that's the one
real,
that hopefully will round it out a little bit, bring in some other stuff,
something
and
else.
so you'll have like sweet orange. I will say, you know, I've smoked a lot of different oranges over the years, and one of the ones more recently that's really stood out to me, and I don't know if I can get this to cross with or not, but my buddy over at LA Family Farms, he has Zamosa, so it's probably Mimosa Z or something like that. And he had given me like some pre-rolls, and man, when I smoked those, I got to tell you, it was one of the most recent times where I was like, this orange is fucking amazing. Like so sweet and so orange. None of the rind, none of the like sharp acrid notes that you don't like. For me, are not really my favorite parts of it, right? Like I want that sweet palate coating, like citrus, clearly orange, not confusably citrus, you know, because citrus is a pretty big spectrum. But when you've got that definitive sweet orange, it's like, It's really, I don't know. Even if you're not an orange person, I think you would really like, anybody would enjoy that Zamosa. Like, she's a gem for sure. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll see if I can get fortunate enough to put that together. But I think my buddy holds that one pretty tight.
Right. Well, I've got your gel. I've got the gelinate in there that I got from secretselections.io. I've also got the Cherry Paloma in there, and then I got that Seed Junkie, and they're all three right next to each other. And gelinate is lemon head candy to me, straight lemon head candy with some
A little
funkiness.
peely though.
A little
Little
peely,
peely,
but there's
though.
some funky sharpness on the end that kind of rounds it out, that makes it not so. Where with, like I said, that emergency is just straight orange, cleaner orange rind to the point of almost nausea. And then to me, I think Paloma has a grapefruitiness to it on its citrus. I think it's like a
Yeah.
grapefruit and gas is the way I like to explain it, with a little funk on the end.
A lot of people do say it like that, and I kind of feel like maybe it's just my breeder eyes won't allow me to perceive it specifically that way. Because I love grapefruit in real life. Like, I'll eat fucking grapefruit all the time, drink grapefruit juice. It's wonderful. And it definitely is like obviously it's not like orange. It's like a different span of citrus. And for me, when it comes to Paloma, I can only see the orange of it. You know what I mean? But again, I think that's just because like I've had the Tropicana cherry cut for so long, and I've hunted a ton of these cherry Palomas in the beginning of the Georgia stuff, and I don't know. They're all really good. There's a lot of killers in there. People have been nothing but happy with the line, you know. But for me, I don't get the grapefruit personally, but everybody else has called it grapefruit pretty much. So, but I don't know. It just leaves me, you know, thinking of grapefruit. It leaves me trying to figure out where is the old authentic grapefruit.
I'll tell you where it is.
How do I find some of those?
It's in your grapefruit Zlushiez that you did, and I don't have that cut anymore.
That one was just all orange to me too.
What? That was so grapefruit, man. It was so grapefruit. I couldn't believe it. It was like more like, to me, Paloma was subtle grapefruit and gas kind of thing, where grapefruit Zlushiez was nothing but grapefruit for me. It was really powerful. That pheno that Fish found, I passed that one out to quite a few people, and a lot of people liked it outdoors. Beulah Farms out here in Hood River, Oregon, did a big old row of it, and it was beautiful, big, and delicious.
That actually,
I don't know.
I was going to jump in with a question, because that actually kind of tees up a question that I was thinking about, which was, you guys were talking about flavors, and you had me thinking about some of our other friends. You know, we're big fans and friends of Huckleberry Hill Farms with his Whitethorn Rose, which is like a very like strawberry, I call it like strawberry oatmeal type taste. And I just saw on his Instagram story the other day, it seemed like he was hinting that there's Whitethorn Rose feminized seeds coming in 2026. I think he was teasing just the other day. So anyways, the question to you, Brad, was have you thought about like collaborating with more of outdoor growers, since you do collaborate a lot with like indoor growers? I'm curious if you've thought about like the indoor, you know, growers from up in the hills, what they're up to.
I mean, hey, I'm down to collab with anybody if they want to get in on some testing or some hunting, or if they've got some cool stuff that's rare and they want to work on doing a drop or something. Like, I'm into collabs. I like working with people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know too many big outdoor guys personally.
Yeah.
You know, I think over the years we've been fortunate to see a few guys. Like, I definitely know who was it? There was a guy on IG, and he would like stand in front of plants and do like sign language basically. And he did Georgia Pie one time, and man, the Georgia Pie was huge. It was Georgia Pie S1. It was like, I mean, it was cool. The guy standing and it was towering, and I was like, wow, that's really awesome. You know, he's doing his thing out there. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't know too many people who do it on that level. So, I mean, if anybody's doing big outdoor grows and they want to get in, I'd love to get the data. You know, I'm happy to bring somebody who's actually excited and passionate, you know, around and try to help with some genetics, because people will often ask like, oh, how do these things perform like in that situation? And I just have to tell them like, hey, I don't know, we're indoor. Pretty much everybody we know is indoor.
Yeah.
So, it's mostly indoor, but they are plants. So, they work everywhere.
Totally.
But, you can't give data that doesn't exist, of course.
Yeah,
So
it's just fun to see. We've seen Ridgeline Farms. He's doing stuff with cookies that helps get some of his stuff down to LA. So I like seeing the kind of northern and southern part of the state collabing and coming up with stuff. But that's before we go. We have a last couple questions that we wanted to ask you before the end of the episode. And one of them, we always love to share grow tips and techniques with our viewers. And JR has a note here that you were sharing some knowledge on a Dude Grows episode once with, I think it was Rasta Jeff was on the episode, and you were talking about how to breed in like a tray. So could you kind of recap us on that? Could share some of your knowledge there for folks that might be interested in doing something like that.
I'm not sure if I remember exactly what it was. I feel like I've done quite a few over the years there.
Well, you guys were just talking about the ability to do some breeding in confined spaces, that you don't necessarily have to have, a giant room to do breeding with. And you were talking about loading up trays and pollinating, I believe was kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, I mean, if I was talking about trays, I'm probably talking about like, getting flood tray tables for tents. Like you can get slightly oversized grow tents to where you could put like a 4x4, or I think the smallest I've seen is like you can get a 3x3 outer diameter table into some of the 3x3 tents. So you could be as small as like a 3x3 with a 3x3, let's say Grower's Choice 420 light in there. And then you just basically need a clip fan, a carbon filter, and some plants to pair together. And I mean, that's an adequate space to, take your first swing at creating seeds or starting a project to kind of see how does it resonate with you? Is it exciting? Do you enjoy it? But yeah, I don't know. I don't really remember the clip specifically, but I'm sure that was probably, kind of the patch notes there on just like able to take a little bit of space and, you could do your reversals. It's obviously, if you're doing breeding of any kind for the first time, using a male is always going to be the easiest. It's basically set it and forget it. You kind of can't fail, unless I guess you let everything like mold out or die too early. But reversals obviously a little tougher, a little more technique, needs a little bit more patience and planning.
Right.
Have they made that easier for folks yet, or is it still kind of the mix the two solutions, spray every day before and all the time after and all that? Or have they kind of made it a little easier for folks?
Yeah, they definitely have sprays. I personally have not used them, but they do have, I think it's like EXO or XO or something like that is one of the sprays. I think you can even buy it on Amazon. Theirs, I think they say you can just spray it one time. But I think I've heard people say you're a little better off to spray it twice. But, something like that, which does make it simpler, I would imagine it's still the same basic idea, but it's probably just using a way more potent and powerful delivery system to yield the same results. Those, I've looked at it and thought about trying it, but the solution is more expensive for the cost of a one-time reversal amount of spray that won't go cover very many plants. You could order sodium thiosulfate and silver nitrate directly to you. It's just normal stuff. There's nothing crazy about it. It's just science, chemistry things. And, for the price of that, you could be doing reversals for 2 years. You don't have to, so I guess does it save you a lot of time? Absolutely. I haven't tried it. I've just watched videos and stuff of other people doing it. It does seem to work. So, you could go that route. But yeah, for me, even though it is more labor, I just kind of go with what I've been doing, what I know works. I don't really have any extra space to risk a project like that right now, which maybe I should demo it, because if it could save me, I mean, hey, I spray a lot of times. I'll spray every other day. If it's a new project, you're reversing something, you don't really know how well it's going to work. personally, I'll spray every other day to every third day, so you have maybe 1 day or a 2 day gap and you're back in there spraying again. If there's one time where you go 4 days, like I just did a Zicky Guy reversal, I think for the third time, really getting better at doing it. And on this one, it didn't feel so hard to get her to, fully get there and not battle me. On the first one, I thought I was going above and beyond spraying. And for some reason, I quit spraying at the same stage I would normally. And she started throwing a bunch of pistols out. And so I had really poor results on my first attempt at making seeds with Zicky Guy reversal, right? And then on my second one, I had better results, but Zicky Guy decided it didn't want to drop pollen very well. And so luckily I always reverse like 4 or 5 just to try to make sure I have a lot of material to try to pull pollen from. And so I got real physical with it, drying the plants back, cutting branches off, doing anything I can to try to encourage dryness, to get some dust clouds to come out, fucking shaking plants like they're paintbrushes on things. So, and then this time on the third cycle, I didn't spray quite as many times as last time, and they seemed to coast right into dropping pollen way faster this time. And there was even at least one time where I know I got a little busy and I didn't spray for like 4 days. So, I don't know. It's hard to say because every plant is different. Like, what's the correlation? What's the real cause and effect of how many times you spray? Until you do it a bunch of times, you don't really know. Like Georgia is probably the other one that I've reversed the most. Like we've done multiple Georgia reversals, tons of them, I feel like, to the point to where if I'm reversing Georgia, it's like no concern, not even a thought. I'm in there spraying. I know she's going to do her thing. And then, it seems like we're heading that way with Zicky Guy now. But yeah, to test out some of those new ones, you basically have to be willing to accept you might have a failed project. But it seems like you probably wouldn't. I mean, they are proven to work, those things. So it's not just like some untested thing. I just personally haven't done it. I've seen a lot of people have great results with it. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would say if you're down to give it a go, you should definitely try some of those things. They are easier. You don't have to mix it. But price point, if you got the price point down where you need it and you got the time to spray, both work. So.
Let's see.
I was on mute. Sorry, guys.
So there we go. So JR, you had one last question, I think, right?
Yeah. So things are kind of evolving in this scene all the time, and pivoting is one of the things that us cannabis people have to do often. And so as you're seeing things kind of unfold in our industry and in our market, what are you kind of looking for as forward momentum for raw genetics?
It's a good question. I'm really, really interested in trying to get, you've known for a while, but I have been in talks with a good friend of mine to, get this nursery collaboration going, basically. So that's definitely one big thing I'm really looking at trying to do is, properly having a full partnership and distribution and everything of raw clones into the recreational market.
Huge. That would be huge.
Yeah, I think that, since we're obviously a genetics company and that's what we focus on, that should be, I think, where we could shine the best, other than just like trying to come out with like legal flowers, of course. But I got to be honest with you, that one is probably the least hard. It's the least complex to figure out. I feel like the way that the rec market is nowadays, anybody with money can go and set up a flower brand drop. You know what I mean? All you got to do is just know a couple of people. So setting up something like that wouldn't really be the biggest problem. It'd just be a huge financial endeavor, basically big investment financially and waiting to see, beating the streets, going out and trying to build that side. But I think, before we focus on anything like that, it's definitely going to be in the nursery side of things. And that should be hopefully the big leg up, right? If we can get all these huge Cali brands and, eventually partner out multi-state, which I think is the goal for anybody in the cannabis industry, right? Like if you're one of us, the goal is to be a multi-state operator at some point in time, or at least have multi-state deals that are all complete, locked in, signed paper. So yeah, I'm hoping that the nursery situation will be a strong catalyst to help us, get the brand in front of more people.
Yeah, I like that. And I like the regionality of it too. Because I think each of these states, the way they're so locked in, like so I can speak for Oregon, if I had accessibility on the rec market to your genetics in the state of Oregon, that would be fantastic. I know, people have worked in some Cherry Paloma here, and I think Georgia apple pies in the roundabouts, and so is grapefruit Zlushiez. But that being said, to be able to set up a nursery in a state and be able to serve the folks, because these guys at these places, they need really good genetics consistently. Not like, hey, one off it, I got to go do all this shit. It's like if they can just source, really high quality genetics in their metric system or whatever the fuck it is, it's a win. It's a huge win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a crazy competitive system too. I've seen, I have a lot of friends that are there. And so I've been doing my best to get my finger on the pulse, since it is definitely a very different situation. And yeah, so it's quite an interesting area of, focus, and we've been looking over the last few months and curating genetics and crossing things together specifically with that goal in mind. So it kind of feels like no matter what side of the industry you're in or what you're trying to do, like each one has its own little nuances, and, you have to make something built to function in that sector,
Yeah. It's a very influential part of the industry, because just through observing where you go through a cycle where at an Emerald Cup you have like just to tell a story, like Dark Heart Nursery had, I think it was Blueberry Muffin there, and Dark Heart got Blueberry Muffin up and down the state of California, and then all of a sudden you were seeing just Blueberry Muffin all over the place. I remember for a while there. So I noticed that those nurseries can be pretty influential in terms of what people
definitely
grow on the commercial side and on the home grow side, for sure.
Yeah. And the feedback on stuff like that too is massive. If you put out something and people don't say anything, then it's like, okay, that's not a good enough selection, right? Not everything's a win, but if you look at everything as at least a part of the learning curve, basically, then there's usually something positive to draw from all those. But yeah, getting a good clone out there and getting people hyped and having them organically sharing that around is really the thing that you need to encourage it to happen, but you can't make it happen, right? You just have to put out good work and then just hope that people want to pass it around. One thing I've seen happen is sometimes when people get things that are really good, they'll want to change the name and stuff on it because, and I've had people tell me this before, right? And they're like, well, we had to change the name because we didn't want people to know where you go and get this, And I'm like, oh, it's a compliment, but it's also not that helpful, but you can't be, it's fine. Whatever people want to do. If you want to change the name. My feelings aren't going to be hurt. You get because like the hat perhaps, but
I think that's one of the things that you do well is when this project leaves your hands and becomes public domain, then it's public domain, right?
Yeah.
And if they honor you and if they honor you and do right by you, then those are the people you want to fuck with. You know what I mean?
And I'm gonna send them a bunch of gear and get them cooking. They're doing good,
That's right.
Yeah. Speaking of that kind of randomly, I did want to bring up something, which would be good just to at least get it out on a podcast. I got to start clarifying a mistake of mine that I made just from not knowing some information. So recently, I had an opportunity to actually speak to Archive. We've kind of gone back and forth a little bit, nothing really seriously over the years, but gone back and forth a little. And so I was reaching out, just trying to say, hey, man, we don't need to have any of that. And it seems like our conversation went reasonably well, so we've been light conversation back and forth. And one day he reaches out to me and he said, "Hey, are you calling Zicky Guy a BX2?" And I said, "Yeah, it's a BX2, right? Here's my understanding of what the information on the website is," right? So I clarified it. And after basically going back and forth a bunch of times, he explained to me that if what I thought was going on was true, then it would be an accurate way to label it. But what he did is, of course, he's the breeder. I'd never been friends with the guy, so I don't know what he does. I assumed, and to assume was to make a mistake in this specific case. And it's still BX2Z, but its correct labeling is not a BX, because what Fletcher told me is that the way he did it is, instead of having one moonbow line where he makes two rainbow belts and then repairs them together, and this being like a closed loop that opens up the rainbow belts hunt bigger, but then still a closed loop, right? Same moonbow, male and female come from this line. He said what he did is he has a moonbow A and a moonbow B, right? These moonbows are created probably similarly to what I thought here, right? But they're two separate moonbow selections. And from here, he makes two different rainbow belts, right? And by doing this, there isn't relation at the same degree, right? Over here, this is a closed loop. They're all related still. Over here, this is not. So it's still two ZBX1s combined together, but now it really does just create just a Z hybrid. You know what I mean? It's not a BX1. And so it makes it not a BX2. It's not a BX at all, technically, based on the actual way that the breeding is done. But it is still also true that in this line, it is back crossed to Z 2 times. And you can tell, you know what I mean? Like, he did a really great job on his part. We've got a really great starting point with that selection. But that mistake.
They're not hold up. I got to get this wrapped in my head. So they're not like brother and sister in those two projects. They were like cousins.
Yeah, like cousins at best,
Yeah.
And because like in this loop, like Z is still really the last parent, because you're just making basically a unique way to approach making an F2 to open the selection more, at least what I always thought that was. And but yeah, now that he's clarified that it originates from two separate
cousins,
moonbow lines, one where he went feminized and one where he went traditional with a male, and then he picks a male from one and a female from one. This female's rainbow belt's 20. The male is, whatever, just rainbow belt's male. Both of these are still ZBX1s, but by combining them together, it just makes technically a new F1 hybrid. But it is also still true that Z is backed up in here. It's still an inbred Z line, but the little nuances really do make the difference. Once he hit me up and he told me, and I was like, oh shit, like, damn, it's no disputing facts, right? Like, when it's the fact, like, it does change the notation of what the marker is on it. And so in turn, that makes Kaizen not a BX3 and oddly a BX1, but it is still true that Z is crossed back into this line 3 times directly. So it's kind of like both are true, but you can't technically label it like that. And so we're, next week we're going to get our descriptions and everything fixed on all the stuff for Zicky Guy and for Kaizen and get all those things correctly notated. And yeah, I literally just found this out like a few days ago. And so I was like, well, how do I get the information to people wild. Best? Right. It really is. And, of course, it's like I couldn't possibly know. I've not been traditionally friends or friendly with Archive. We just really had no interaction. Right. It's not a negative one per se, but I wouldn't say that we were friendly either. Right. And then after we had our conversation, I'm glad to say I feel like we've, kind of found some level ground to stand on, although we may not fully agree 100% with each other. But, he did reach out to tell me this, which I thought was a kindness, because he could have just let me run around with it mislabeled and just been low key laughing like this guy doesn't know, which I imagine probably is what was going on previously, right? Like, it totally seems like, if you're not happy about something and you see the guy just not knowing and making a mistake, like, you probably can enjoy that a little bit, which is fine. I got no problem with it. I can take a couple hits, right? but it would be silly to ignore the information, and it doesn't take away from what it is or the quality of it or anything. The BX marker itself does not inherently make it better. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that it's better because it has a more fancy terminology in front of or back or wherever you want to put it. So, the quality's still the same. The Z is definitely getting improved. The relabeling, as far as adjusting those things, and publicly getting the knowledge to people is what we want to do now. And then other than that, everything's still the same. We're still working on continuing to resolve and fix some of the shortcomings of Z. We're going down different paths with F2s and N crosses and additional back crosses and, F2ing those, and just basically looking down as many different, avenues as we can think that might lead us to having, a line that we can breed where it's true to Z and there are like almost no short phenos, right? So we're trying to basically over time eliminate that. But yeah, either way, like the Kaizens are, they're at about a 50-50 split, in my opinion. I'm sure it's going to be luck of the draw, depending on how many packs you pop, right? But about 50% of the population was tall, 50% of the population was just shorter, right? Shorter varies, tall varies. And then we really only were.
The Z Pi I did 4. I had 3 that are exactly the same height and 1 that's taller.
Yeah. The Z Pi is definitely like the one that we have the cup winning one here and everything. And she's a shorter, squattier, more Z built plant. Definitely has more of that interior branching where, Ziki Guy and Kaizen, we're working hard to select away from that behavior because it's not really helpful necessarily, right? Because you can like clean all this stuff out. That's a lot of extra work. It's a lot of material growth that you don't need to waste time on, which happens. And so if we could just get the plants to grow more vertically and less of a bush, which you can definitely see in the Z Pi line, like they do like to be a little shorter, mid-height bush, don't stretch a lot.
Great for tint. They want to be tint, and if you're a tint or a home grower, fantastic, because they do produce well.
Oh yeah, they definitely do well. I haven't seen any that wash well so far. I know the stuff that comes from washing them is amazing, but it's typically at around 1% to 2%, which is pretty painful for anybody's pocket. Anybody, whoever you are, like 1% is like not doable really. So I don't think that's worth it. But it does make some great rosin. The little bit that will come out of it, if you're willing to throw most of it away.
Well, we're gonna as we're getting to the final bits of the episode here, final end of the episode, we're going to give you a chance to have some shout outs. On our end, we're going to make a couple shout outs to some folks who are watching on the live stream in the CannaBuzz community. Devil's Leaf 44 and Pacific Northwest Dan were hanging out in the chat.
Oh, sweet.
And so shout outs to you guys. But yeah, Brad, where can people check out more from Raw Genetics? Where can they follow you? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, rawgenetics.io is our main website. You can hop on there. We've got a new drop every Friday, basically got feminized Fridays rocking all year long. So we'll have new, interesting feminized drops going nonstop. We've got a bunch of traditional ones to kind of weave in as we go through the year and various events, right? Other than that, I would say secretselections.io, which is our clone website where you can go and get verified, clean, tested cuts, things that we've selected, clone onlys that are popular on the market, just various things that we think are interesting and could be helpful for people in their gardens. Secret Selections is basically getting a big revamp right now. So the website will basically be getting set up soon to where we'll have full description, full information, where like right now, the reason why that doesn't exist is the card processors won't allow you to put more than 2 words about, like I could put the cross in the name. That's literally it. Right. Any more words and they'll shut the card processing off, so we're basically restructuring the website in a way that will keep them happy and allow us to make the website better for people as well. So yeah, I'm really excited about that, and just a bunch of improvements on the clone website, all the way from bringing rooted cuts back over the next couple of weeks. We're going to have rooted cuts coming back for the first time in probably about a year. And we've upgraded, or really, I shouldn't say upgraded. We've just returned back to having all the shippers and stuff that we used to use a long time ago. I've ordered them in bulk, and so we'll have everything coming in nice secret selection shippers, fully branded, same quality, clean cuts, new selections, new pheno stuff coming down the line. But yeah, big revamp going down on the Clone website over there. I think a lot of people are going to be happy with that.
And I'm fortunate enough to showcase some of your offerings. And so if you hit my IG and you want to see how stunning, I mean, absolutely stunning some of the offerings are from there, go ahead and hit it up, man.
Yeah, you've been crushing it with that Zlushiez too recently. I saw, I think she's not the most impressive visually, but I think when you roll her up and smoke her, you're going to be like, oh, I see why this is here.
It was one of the first ones that I could smell again after I just recently had the Corona thing. And for me, I just got fruity licorice, man, for days. And it's so powerfully strong. I can't wait to taste it. I hope it translates to tasting exactly like it smells.
It does. Yeah, it does.
I can't wait. Yeah. So I'm in week 8.5. So things are coming down shortly.
Nice.
Awesome, guys. Nice. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today, Brad. We really do appreciate your time. Congratulations on 10 years. We've had you on the show for probably about half of that or so. So it's been cool to watch the journey and be a part of that in our own way. Thanks everyone who's watching and supporting the show. We really do appreciate you, especially everyone in the CannaBuzz community. Your support is really appreciated. It helps us do events and all those sorts of things. So please join us over there. We'd love to see you. And thanks to our other sponsors as well. Thanks, guys. You can see their links and all that kind of stuff down in the descriptions. That's about it. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And as always,
always love.
Peace, guys.
Peace.